In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 7-layer info coaching dip recipe. I'm going to be walking through the differences between everything from one-to-one coaching where you are servicing it and what you can charge for something like that, all the way down to if you're just selling login access to a course and what you can charge for that. There's many differences across these on how much leverage you can get for your time and your money. So we're going to talk through the differences on acquisition sources, on how you fulfill on these, and then also the different monetization models you can use for your info coaching business. All right. This one's going to be super valuable for anyone with info coaching business and is going to get some nuggets out of it. All right. Last year, we did 30 million in our info coaching business, and we've now crossed over 77 million in total cash collected. And I'm not selling you anything. Everything on the channel is to share what did work for us, what didn't work for us, and what we're actively doing to scale to 100 million a year, all with the goal of finding top talent for our company, opportunities, and network with cool people doing cool stuff. All right. So let's get into it. To start this off, we're going to talk about, let's use an example of you are in BizOp, right? So you're selling some dream, you're selling some result where they're going to have XYZ business or make XYZ money online, okay? The top tier of this, generally speaking, is going to be selling one-on-one coaching with you. Okay, so there's different implementation methods. There's done for you, done with you, all these different things. But to keep this simple, we're going to go down the fulfillment stack and what you can charge. Okay, so what you can charge is how they value this, the likelihood they think they're going to receive the result, the amount of pain they have to go through. Right, go through an Alex Hormozi book, that style of things. But on the very top tranche is generally speaking going to be one-to-one working directly with you. Okay, so that costs you your time to do so, but you likely can get the highest dollar value. So for example, this is something you could charge 50 grand, you could charge 100 grand. You look at these top guys like Cardone or whoever, they charge hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's one-to-one coaching where it's a consultation call, it's a consulting call, it's whatever, and that's the top tier, okay? The next tier down on that is going to be group, okay? So it's still coaching, it's still you doing the fulfillment, but instead of you doing one-to-one calls or one-to-one Zooms, you're doing one-to-many, okay? So people can come in and you're coaching multiple people at once. So you have leverage then in terms of you're still spending the same, let's say you had 2 1-hour blocks for coaching calls. Now, instead of just being able to service 2 people for those 1 hour each, you're now servicing many people, okay? Now, with that, the value of it is a little less to the consumer or the person because they're not getting you one-on-one, and the price then is in alignment. So let's say this is 50K. This is then going to be something that's whatever, 10 to 25K, okay? Depending on. And all of these are very, very variable, okay? We're just going through the overall like mental model of this more so than we are the actual dollars, because if you're selling something that's guaranteed to do XYZ, and I don't know how you do guarantees, but if you're going to make $1 million, it could be hundreds of thousands, it could be a lot of these different things. I know like a Cardone one, for example, is hundreds of thousands of dollars in these packages for one-to-one calls with them, okay? Now, the next tranche down on that, and this is kind of the land that our main company lives in, and this is one-to-one coaching. Okay, so it's same as this, but instead of you doing the one-to-one coaching, you have team. You have coaches that do the one-to-one coaching. Okay, now this same thing is valued at a bit less, but is more than group, right? Then because they're getting the one-to-one attention, they're getting that. But instead of it, you as the expert, you as the person, it is your team doing it. Okay, so this now introduced costs where you now have to pay a team when before your costs were your time. Okay. You're going to have the other business costs and the overhead and the acquisition and whatever, the other things. But in here, there was no direct cost except your time, but no dollars going out to fulfill on this. This is when you start to introduce dollars that it costs to have team, okay? So one-to-one is going to be here. The next tranche down from that is going to be something that is group. So it's going to be the same thing again as here, but your team is fulfilling on it. So recap, you have you doing one-on-one calls a couple hours a week. The next layer, and you can charge this super high top dollar. This next layer is going to be in a group setting. So you're helping multiple people on these coaching calls, same amount of time, more leverage. This on the next one is now you don't have to do any of these because you have a team doing one-to-one, but now you have to pay a team 10%, 20%, whatever of that cash collected. And there's people who get it all the way down to 1 to 5%. Industry averages call it 10, 15% to pay the team. This then introduces the much lower where it's maybe only 5%, 1 to 5% of your costs because your coach's time now is being leveraged by having multiple. They don't have to handle one-to-one stuff. They do group coaching calls, all that kind of stuff. All right. So those are the general tranches of of coaching. And then we start to layer in info. Okay. And all of these can kind of be mixed and mangled. And we're going to get to that on like the customization of that. That's going to drive me crazy. These are different sizes. But info coaching is generally going to be that someone gets access to info plus a coaching element. This is like the classic key, like largest one. This is what UpLevel was always about. This is what all these guys who productize their service. So you're always selling the same result of what they're getting. But the delivery method and the fulfillment model is that they get login access to a course. They generally speaking will get a community on top of that, and then they will get group coaching calls. Okay, this is like the very, very common example. I know Iman, for example, did a version of this, but they had one-to-one coaching calls where they had like a team that was doing one-to-one coaching calls. that was, I think, 5 or 6 calls they would do. And then they would also get access to the course, the community, and then they got 6 one-to-one calls. Okay. And then group coaching calls that exist. You have a small team and all they do is operate, the twice a week, Tuesday to Thursday for 2-hour blocks. People submit into that thing. They get the group, Q&A, they get personalization in the group setting. They also have the community and the product. Okay. This is the most like classic OG one. This is how we were doing 10 million a year. We were selling an info product that had group coaching calls and a course. As we got more volume, we just introduced more group coaching calls, but it is so marginal. The scale and the leverage you get from one to many is massive. Okay. So this is like the most common. The next layer down is people who just sell info and community. So they do no coaching calls. And as we go down this, I haven't been doing a good job of this, but explaining that the cost, generally speaking, to the customer, what you can charge goes down as you go down this. Completely arbitrary that I'm like saying that at some level, because there are different niches and different models that you can charge 10 grand just for an info and community. And there are also ones where it only makes sense to charge $1,000. Okay. There's also different things. If you're selling over the phone, you can charge higher or more. So you have to sell over the phone to get the good conversion rates you want over the phone. You have to use over the phone if you're going to sell something, say, call it 5K plus. There are exceptions to all of this. I know people who sell 10K via DM. So differences, but the next layer is going to be info and community. So this is going to be same thing. Someone gets access to a course and then they have a community around it. This is very, very common in kind of the lower ticket space. And inside, like a lot of them make money online stuff. They get in a Facebook group or a WAP community or a school community, and they have course modules and they ask questions in there. Okay. A lot of them, almost, I would say probably 90% live in this land where they also introduce some level of group coaching. And then the next and the final is going to be like an info product course login. This is generally gray area because when people are doing this, there's a lot of good of them, but a lot of them will have community. The ones that have no community, generally there's a reason they don't have a community, and it's because they don't want people to interact, and then it stirs things up and chargebacks and that whole game. We don't play this game where it's just info. We always play at the lowest tier of info community where people are still inside there, and generally the best one is going to be in here. Okay. Now, another thing to think about before we get into the different acquisition sources and the different fulfillment models and how to do this is stacking these. So what you can do is essentially, if you just want to look at it top up, you can have it so your tranches go like this. Okay. And this is a very extreme example, a very, very extreme example. But where you are making all of this big money here and you're charging this. So in an example of how we run this, we'll go like this. So our model is we can sell this first. Okay. So for a very low ticket, so sub $100, we'll sell a little info product, a little course that has a community element. We will then try to get them on the phone and talk to a closer to sell them one-to-one coaching. Let me move these out of the way for you guys. Where we sell them one-to-one coaching where our team fulfills on it. And then after X amount of time and they're in the program, they can either buy this again to introduce LTV, or what we will offer on the back end is instead down step. So essentially it's like this. They will buy this for a low amount. They'll buy this for, call it 5K, 10K in here. They will then get one-to-one coaching. And then when they're done needing one-to-one coaching, done needing the personalization, they will then downstep to still continue to be a customer, but they will exist in a one-to-many situation. So it costs less to the customer because we charge less. And it also costs us less to fulfill because a coach is now doing one-to-many. So they can have, 300, 500 per coach instead of over here. They maybe only have 50 or 100 or whatever amount of clients because they're doing one-to-one versus one-to-many. Okay. So this is like a realistic example of a 3 offer stack that all can play together. It's not necessarily one or the other. Right. So now that I jumbled these all up, I'm not gonna be able to find them easily. But there we go. So a lot of what a lot of people will do is, where's the good one? This. So I know a ton of people who will direct to cart sell this for, call it $2,000. So when I say direct to cart, I mean they'll use a webinar or a VSL or just like a checkout link that people directly purchase this. They'll do an onboarding call and then they will get sold one of these where it is actually not that one. They'll get sold this one right off the rip. And this is something that's like a 10K or a 15K offer. And then they have this crazy high tier where they then will sell one-on-one coaching with them or group coaching with them on the back end and get another 25 or 50K. Okay, so it's very, very common, very, very common. And there's a multitude of different ways to look at this. There's masterminds, there's like offer tranches. This isn't so much to be around offer. It's about to be how you fulfill on the product. So at the very top in the info coaching, biz op land, you have masterminds that exist up here. And then you have one-to-one. Go look at Russell Brunson's stack where there's only a couple people in this very, very top tier. And they're working, even then they're kind of working in a group setting, but they have one-to-one with Russell. they have one to a couple people with Russell. They then have a bigger tranche where it's actually one to a lot of people with him, where it kind of exists in this info coaching land. And then he, at one point, I don't know if he's a good example for this, but had one-to-one with where his team was doing one-to-ones and then where his team is doing one-to-many. So that's kind of just the general framework I'm trying to instill, is that you can mix and match and part in all these. So these, let's do this part. So the acquisition source, the fulfillment source, and the monetization model. So there's a lot of different acquisition sources. I'm just going to use these 3 as examples, but again, go do your own research. There are more than these. These are not the 3. These are just like core 3. So you have paid advertising, you have organic. So you have long form YouTube videos, you have all that kind of stuff where you built a following and you can now convert, and you have affiliates. Okay. So what a lot of people will do is they will stack these into one, and they will sell info with group coaching and a community. Okay. The other way to do this that a lot of people do now is either a free or low ticket community that is then charged in a recurring fashion. And to touch on these real quick, there's one-time access to something where you get lifetime access to a course. There is recurring, where you will pay for a term. A lot of people will sell 6-month programs or monthly recurring programs, stuff like that. Ours, for example, is an annual recurring program. And then these I do want to talk about, but kind of on a separate tangent, because this is more biz op-y and like high level consulting, where you can charge rev share, profit share, equity percent, or have partnerships. And that one kind of connects back to this. So let's talk on these first. So in a dream state, let's say you have a fitness influencer that has, like, I've just talked to a couple guys, and we'll use like a Rob or whatever as an example. Okay, so who I just talked to, who's a big fitness influencer. So what he'll use is he'll use organic traffic. He'll build up a big organic audience, and then what he'll push them to is an info product that is recurring. Okay, so these guys all have these apps that have really good programs in them, but instead of having to fulfill on it with one-to-one coaching, they will then be able to instead fulfill on it in a recurring app. So they'll build these up very, very large, and then one of the things they can do is then introduce something like coaching that then has also recurring, but then they'll introduce coaching on the back that then you can choose if you want to fulfill on that through him coaching. Because if Rob was to coach somebody for a year, it's tens and tens and tens or high tens of thousands of dollars, versus if he wanted to coach someone and in a group setting, so group coaching calls and like a product or whatever, this would be a little bit easier for him, but it would, charge less because the person's not working one-to-one with him directly, all the way down to like what we do, which is one-to-one with the team. He would have a team of coaches. They would get one-to-one support, one-to-one planning, one-to-one like adjustments, all of that stuff, and it would work through the team. But then he would have to manage a large team. Okay, and that's where a lot of these guys don't want to, and I completely understand why they wouldn't when they have the really, really good life of. They always talk about lifestyle by design, but they'll come into here. They'll have an organic engine. They focus mainly on this piece, on this organic content machine. It then pushes people into this info product that's low, easy barrier entry. They get MRR, recurring revenue. And then if they so choose, they then usually have partnerships. So they'll have, like Rob's example he talked about yesterday, is almost all these fitness influencers will have 2. They'll have a apparel and they'll have a supplement. So he'll get apparel and supplement revenue that comes both from people inside this community and just from organic direct. And then they will have, if they so choose, to have an increased like coaching style program that instead of $100 a month or $15 a month or whatever, they can upstep or ascend into something that is like $5K for 6 months or whatever for these coaching programs. You just have to determine how you're going to fill on it. And for these guys, sometimes that just doesn't make sense, because either they don't want to do it with their own time, or they don't want to have a team and then have to worry about quality issues, management of people, all of that, all for what? Right? So these guys have a huge ROI on lifestyle to income ratio. So that's kind of like that model. Now, another example of somebody who is in, let me segment these out again. I got to figure out a better way to make these. I'm so bad at them. But another example is, let's say I was to do some version of this. Okay. So like my dream state, because I want to use these a little bit. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to build up an organic audience like I am right now and then push them where, right? Like how do I monetize this machine? So one of the things I could do is just do a community, and I can either do that recurring, one time, free, whatever, to put all the people in there. So it's very, very common for anybody in a lot of these niches to push people to a free group that would exist in WAP, school, wherever that they would, WhatsApp, Telegram, and just have them inside this community, and they would have it gated. So they would have $100 a month or something like that. So they would have this recurring piece on the community. They would exist in here, and then they would upsell them either to an info product that's the how-to. So you essentially have just like the group and just access to the people. You then have the product and the info. A lot of the time these are bolted together, but let's say you had like an Ascension one that was learn how to do XYZ, how to operate a machine that does 30 million a year, whatever it is. And then you'd sell this. Usually typically this is going to be more one time unless it carries on and has continuing. The thing with info is if it's not continuation of education and it's not continuation of learnings and like constantly adjusting, it doesn't make sense to charge recurring. It only makes sense to charge one time, because why is someone continuing to pay for college after they're out of college and they learn the thing, right? So that's there. And then the highest tranche would be coaching. And the coaching, where I'm looking at it as, is these pieces. So instead of doing coaching where your monetization model is this recurring whatever, where you charge 50K for 6 months or whatever to get coaching from you, what you can do is like the true performance models where you take rev share, where you take or profit share or equity. And depending on the business model, like for example, info coaching is extremely unlikely. Like 99.99% will never sell. So like equity doesn't even make sense like a lot of the time, unless it turns into like a true big business. But rev share makes sense. Profit share is a little bit harder, but like depending on it may make sense. The thing with profit share is you a lot of time can't control expenses. You can't control what happens inside the business as somebody who's just like a consultant or a coach. Okay. So profit share, let's just say rev share to keep it simple. So like my model that I could do, and again, I say I don't sell anything because I don't sell anything. People ask me for coaching, consulting, all this shit all the time. And I say no to all of it. And I'm just like happy to help because my thing and my main thing that I'm focusing on is building our core business, right? I want to take this to, that be less than 1 year of our revenue. And obviously that hasn't happened yet. And that is the goal and the number one thing. It's just a lot of leverage and team and everything built. So that's the goal. But outside of that, I'm so interested in this industry and in info coaching in this space and the people and all that. So it's like, how would I model something where, maybe there's a community aspect that's free, gated or something, but then I don't want to sell info. I don't want to sell. I just don't want to sell anything. I don't want anybody to give XYZ expectation or dollars, then expect XYZ. That's not the goal of what I'm doing, nor is it my main focus. But this is very interesting to me. Is there a way or a model to get percentage for coaching? So I can still have the time allocation of 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever a month with a business, either in one-to-one or one-to-group. And then instead, my monetization model, instead of making the 50K or whatever, it's you get a percentage of the rev in order to do so. So that's like another example and model. And I just kind of selfishly use myself in there. But a lot of different ways to do this. Now, another way that I see people do this is with affiliate. So I know people who have, where is this? It is just info, and then it is just, where am I looking? Yeah, there we go. Just info and just coaching. So they will use affiliates for their traffic source instead. They will push them to an info and community with coaching. Now, this is one time, and it's just meant to get them in the door. So they will use affiliates to sell something that is like $50, that is does info, and then also has a community aspect. And the big thing with the community aspect is they use that to upsell into the coaching side of things. And the coaching side of things for them, there we go. Coaching side of things is both recurring and partnerships. So what I mean by that is they will have a recurring 6-month program that is, I think, let's call it 50 grand, but it's around there. And they'll have this big ticket thing that is recurring to be part of it, stay in it and be in there. But then they'll also make a ton of money on these partnerships. So an example of this is when I talk about, if you watch other videos on the channel, I talk about like life insurance and how it has this huge back end to where you can sell info, coaching, community right here. And then on the back end, you can just monetize like crazy with partnerships because it's in the financial space. So they have estate attorneys they need. They have money managers they need. They have like all these other things that you can either get paid a referral fee, either as a one-time or as a percentage of the deal, which is kind of like more of like this. But there's a lot of different models like that. And I see that this one crushes, and this entire business uses affiliates instead of having to build up organic channels or pay for advertising. So they just give away 30% of the math of, or it's actually higher, but it's like 60% of the math of what they generate over here. And then this business crushes all just from coaching. They could give away 300% over here because they make so much money on the back end through coaching and recurring and partnerships. So I hope this was helpful. Kind of just like bouncing around on this, but this is something I'm really thinking about right now as we continue to do this in our main business. And then I kind of shop and figure out how I want to do my main thing. Because my main thing I think I do want to do. I like this industry too much. So I kind of want to do something like this. I think there's some cool partnerships I'd be able to do and then also make money here. I have a ton of people that I like really respect that do really good work that I would be happy to refer out. I think there's some business there. Same with some of the softwares and stuff, but I don't know. I want to stay in this land of just not selling anything. I don't want to go into, info and this and that. Like, I just don't care. And I don't need the money and don't want the headache and the expectations. I just want to help people in the industry and make sure that we're all on the same page here and going up and to the right and build the one big business in the center and do that through owning it, not through operating it. So I want to own it, not own or operate it. And that is to come. So hopefully I'll have some updates for you guys. Today is day like 99 or something of this in a row. I'm going to slow down and stop stop doing the daily updates here soon, but we've done every single day since the beginning in a row. So I'm going to slow down. I have some cool stuff that I'm about to announce, I believe. It's kind of in the works. We're going back and forth on some deal terms and some stuff, but there's some cool stuff in the works. And overall, I'm just going to keep making videos just a little bit more intermittently. I'll probably do like a 1 to 3 a week, and then I'll come up with a cadence and stick to that. Just so these are really, really impactful, really, really deep on things that we're learning, cool podcast or interview or whatever guests of like cool people I'm talking to, and a really good structured cadence, maybe a little bit higher quality, even though I do like these just like this. There's a way to make it a little bit better for you guys. So that's kind of the goal. But yeah, hit me up. You guys know where to find the videos, www.ryanclogg.com/doc. Mindset, sales, ops, marketing, tech. I break them all down into here so you can look. The beginning of the videos were extremely focused on like the details of marketing and tech and systems and builds, and then now has been, as my evolution has occurred throughout this, has been more around the content, the personal brand, the operations of the business, the hiring of the people, all of that, because that's truly where my brain is traveling as we're going through this, and I just share what's happening now. So right now, this is what we're talking about. This is what I'm thinking about. So that is what we talk about on here. All right. So hit me up on Instagram, links below in the comments. Comment on these. I think it's funny as shit when you guys comment funny stuff on these. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon and appreciate it. Talk good.